Welcome everybody. I don't know if he's ready to start recording. I guess he is. Good to see all of you here. I'm used to doing this on Friday morning at like 8:30, so there's like 3 people in the presentation. It's kind of nice to have it at the start of the Dev Summit. No pressure at all. I've also had to reduce this to a demo theater. It used to be a tech workshop, so I debated like cutting stuff out or just talking much faster. So I kind of did both. All right, so let's get started. So we're going to talk about how we manage imagery in ArcGIS, which has been around for probably 10 years now, but we're continuing to change it and improve it. But it's still mostly GP based. The good thing about it is we're continuing to add what's called raster products and raster formats. And a raster product is just a pre-cooked template we use to add, say, something like GOI to a Mosaic data set. So you don't have to do anything anymore. You don't have to do any pre-processing. All these raster these product templates come preset, and you just have to point to the folder with your data in it, and it'll generate these Mosaic data sets. So yeah, this list is growing, especially with drone imagery. I mean, drone imagery is getting pretty crazy at this point. We're having a hard time keeping up with all these different formats and products. I don't know if you've heard about this, but probably next year at the Dev Summit, maybe at the UC, we'll start talking about Python raster types, which is like a customized raster type that you can write in Python. So if you have this new sensor type or a new drone, and you want to pre-cook these templates so your end user doesn't need to know about how to pre-process, you can write them in Python. So that'll plug into the story probably next year. It's ready, we're just not quite ready to expose it to the world. So our basic image management story is the Mosaic dataset. It lives in a file geodatabase. It can live in enterprise geodatabase, which I'll show you a little later. If you want to do like live updating of these Mosaic datasets while they're published as image services, what you have to do is store it in an enterprise geodatabase, but it is supported in file geodatabases as well. So what it is it's a dynamic series of tables and geometries and pointers to rasters on disk. We're not telling people to load rasters into databases anymore or mosaic things into one giant image. It's all on the fly now, so it's pretty lightweight, and it's all integrated through ArcGIS Enterprise as well. So because this is all done in GP, we can automate it. We can automate it with Python. And even the publishing story can be done through Python, through geoprocessing. But I think over the next, I don't know if you guys have been watching stuff about the Python API. I think over the next year or so, I should probably change this presentation a bit to integrate the Python API for like portal management and publishing and all that. But you can do it in GP. There are server tools that are accessible through ArcToolbox as well. So here's a really complicated picture that maybe is too complicated. But on the far side, on the left-hand side, we just have the collection of imagery in their native format. You see these raster types, which sit on top of this raw imagery, and they composite. So they'll composite the bands, they'll extract metadata, they'll put all that in the Mosaic data set. So that's what we mean by a raster type. And that's an XML file, although you don't really need to dig into the XML if you're doing basic stuff. But I do have some Python scripts that go in and edit these XMLs. And then the Mosaic data set, which sits in your file geodatabase. We can apply raster functions, which I'll talk briefly about. There are some other presentations on raster functions. A raster function is like an on-the-fly image processing template that we can apply to imagery. Those can live inside the Mosaic dataset as well. And then you're ingesting into your clients. So whether you're ingesting it in ArcGIS Desktop or Pro, on server and your web applications, these are all Mosaic datasets and image services are all accessible through this. So the first demo I'm going to show is automating Mosaic dataset creation and ingestion of imagery. So what I have is a giant folder full of imagery. I don't know what it is. Well, well, I know what it is because I made the demo, but it's got GOI, it's got Iconos, it's got Landsat in it. It's just a giant folder full of imagery, and I want to make Mosaic datasets out of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crawl through a workspace, and I'm going to list all the rasters in there. I'm going to find all these rasters, and I'm going to get the properties of those rasters, and I'm going to try and determine the sensor name. So I'm going to make a Mosaic dataset out of each sensor type. So I'm going to, this get raster properties will get properties of a raster, and I can actually get the sensor name of these raster products in that folder. And then I'm going to create a Mosaic dataset for each of these sensor types. And then I'm going to go and find all these different types of imagery and put them in according Mosaic datasets. So let me jump over to my code really quickly. I'm going to put this in presentation mode. So here you can see here's my raster finder function. So I'm gonna actually go through a particular workspace, list all the rasters in there. After that, I'm going to populate a list full of the rasters and the sensor names. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to make Mosaic datasets. I'll go a little bit further down here. So I'm going to get a search cursor. I'm going to actually pass through this list of sensors, get the sensor name, and then I'm going to down here. I'm going to skip all this because there's a lot of validation. I'm going to create a Mosaic dataset with the sensor name, and then I'm going to add rasters to the Mosaic dataset using a particular raster type. So I'm going to get each raster type as an XML, pass it into the Mosaic dataset, and then I'm going to add all these rasters to it. And that's about it. It's a fairly basic demo. I'll jump over here. So I have it wrapped in a toolbox, although this is all pointing to this Python code. So here is my my tool that I created. All it really needs is the input data. So here's my folder. It's got a bunch of data in there. I'm going to put that as my input and my output folder. Give it a second here. My output folder will be here. I'll put it in the output. So this is going to create the database, create the Mosaic datasets, populate them with that particular raster type. So let's run it. You can see it's discovering. It's found some Landsat data in there. It'll find a few other things, and it'll take whatever's left over that doesn't have a sensor associated with it. So maybe it's just raw aerial photos, and it'll just put it in its own Mosaic dataset at the end. So it's found GOI. Give it a sec here. It shouldn't take too long. And some GOI. Now it's adding the data to it. Using that raster type, I should have minimized this so I can show you how raster types work in the GP tool. And while this is running, it's taking a little longer than it should. I'll go back over. So once I create these Mosaic data sets, I wanna get them ready for publishing. So in order to do that, I'm going to extract certain things from these Mosaic data sets. So let's say I just want the pan-sharpen product. These Mosaic data sets will contain a bunch of stuff. They'll contain the multispectral, they'll contain the pan-sharpen product. A part of these raster product templates, it does that. It pre-makes your different products. So we want to create a derived Mosaic data set. We don't want to publish all these Mosaic data sets. We just want, say, the pan-sharpen version of GOI and Iconos. So we're going to create what's called a derived Mosaic data set. And all that is a Mosaic data set pointing to another Mosaic data set, or a series of Mosaic data sets. Let's go see if this is done running. Yeah, so that's done. So let's take a look at what it output. So it output different Mosaic data sets. I have a GOI Mosaic data set. Give it a sec to render here. And it has an Iconos Mosaic data set, all in the same area. So what I want to do is I want to extract, so you can see there's a bunch of products in there. I have, Do you go over, where is it? Right here to this tag field, you can see I have pan sharpened and multispectral products. So I want to extract this from the table, from this Mosaic dataset, create a new Mosaic dataset with just the pan sharpened versions of my Iconos and my GOI, and I'm going to publish that to server when I'm done. So let me expand this a little bit. So yeah, I'm going to use a customized raster type, and we use this generic name called table type, which can search through any table and add imagery. So if you have a bunch of imagery stored in a table, like paths imagery, you can use that. We also use it to create these derived Mosaic data sets, because essentially what it's going to do is it's going to go look at the table of those old Mosaic data sets that I created and crawl through the table and actually create a new Mosaic data set from that. So I'm going to use the search cursor, run through the table of that old Mosaic data set, grab the pan sharpened products from both of them, and create a new custom Mosaic data set, which we call a derived Mosaic data set. I'm actually going to extract some information from it too. I'm going to grab the wavelength and the band names from them and have them in the table for later use. So let's kick that off. I don't have a toolbox wrapped around that one. It's actually just code, which I don't have open. So here let's kick it off first and get it running, and I'll look at the code. So here, essentially, what we're doing is we're creating a new Mosaic data set we're actually going to do it in SD. This time I'm actually going to make an SD Mosaic data set because I'm going to want to live update this later. And in order for me to live update, it needs to be in Enterprise Geodatabase. Then I'm going to go edit this. I'm actually going to edit this XML file, which is the raster type, the table type. And I'm going to change a few things in there. And then I'm going to go crawl through the old Mosaic data sets and add the pan sharpened versions of the GOI imagery and the Iconos imagery to a single Mosaic data set, which I'm then going to publish. So let's see how this thing's doing. Did it run? Oops. Using the wrong Python version. Let's just wait a second here. So I was pointing to Python 3.6. They changed the print statement in Python. I don't know why. It's really annoying. It's one of the things that you can't go back and forth between 10.6 and Pro with. Okay, let's kick it off again. So this is going to create a new derived Mosaic data set in my SD database. I'm going to remove these. My database connection is right here. Let's see how this thing's doing. So you can see it's editing the XML file. There's a bunch of different Python modules that you can use to edit these XMLs. I usually use Minidom. I don't know if there's a better version of that out there, but that's what I'm comfortable with. So here we're adding new custom fields and building overviews. Do you guys know what overviews are? Do I need to explain what overviews are? Overviews are like a lower resolution version of rasters that sit at higher scales. So we use it to optimize. It's kind of like cache, same concept of cache. When you're zoomed out, you have a lower resolution version of that raster sitting there, so you're not loading all those pixels into your view when you don't need them. So that's what a service, used to call it a service overview. It's called an overview now. So that's done. So let's take a look at what it output. Oops. So here's my Postgres Mosaic data set. It's got, if you look at the table, you can see I have my sensor name. I got Iconos and GOI in there. I don't know why I have so many null records. Just the pan sharpened versions of them. So now I have something I'm satisfied with that I wanna publish to ArcGIS server, and I'll show you that. So like I said, I think over the next year or two we should probably change this. If you guys checked out any of the Python API stuff, a lot of that server and portal admin stuff is now part of that Python API, and we can just plug some of this Python API into these scripts as well. I'm doing it using geoprocessing, but stay tuned. So there's two tools. There's two basic tools. There's a stage image server service definition draft tool. So that's where we're gonna like pre-cook our definition draft and add all the information in that. And then there's a publish SD draft tool. So that'll take that service definition draft and publish the image service. So I'm going to create this connection file. I'm going to put in my server name, server type, and create the server definition file. And then once it's ready, I'm gonna edit it a little bit. And then I'm gonna analyze it. So you can analyze these things. You can do it through desktop as well, but if you want to do this completely automated, you can actually analyze these service definition files, see if there's any warnings, see if there's anything that could potentially pop up. And you can output that in Python as well. And then I'm going to stage it, and then I'm going to upload the service definition file. Just something to be aware of. You probably hear this a lot, and it's kind of a confusing term. We have publish image service by value, and we have publish image service by reference. By value means you're going to move all of that data onto the server. So it could potentially take forever. You know, if you're talking about terabytes of imagery that you're moving, it could take a long time. By reference, we'll keep the data where it is. As long as your ArcGIS server, the account you have logged into ArcGIS server, that service has access to this folder, it should be okay. So you don't need to duplicate all this data on your server. Most people don't do this anymore, just because imagery is getting so huge and it just takes forever to do this. All right, so I'm going to do a quick demo on publishing. So let me get the tool started. So I have a toolbox for this one as well. So what it needs is my server, my username, my path to my Mosaic dataset. So I'm going to point to the one that I just created in SDE because I'm going to live update this later. The service name doesn't matter. We'll call it GOI Iconos. I didn't type in. Iconos. An underscore in here because GP doesn't like spaces. And I'm also going to apply a template, this thing I talked to you about. So you can build these templates. We have a bunch of these templates available out of the box. I'll show you where they are in 10. I'll show you where they're in Pro. They're a little bit more accessible in Pro. They're in like their own pane. So if you go in here into the image analysis window, you can actually right-click and insert functions. So we have a huge list of out-of-the-box functions from like masking, image classification. We have a bunch of arithmetic ones, slope. You know, we have some spatial functions in there, and this list is growing and growing and growing. So we're going to apply this to the Mosaic dataset, and I'll show you where it gets applied. So it's actually going to sit on top of the Mosaic data, or sit within the Mosaic dataset, and then you can, as an end user, you can like flip through these and apply, say, slope or whatever. For this demo, I'm just going to do a basic one. Let's open this tool. I'm going to add an NDVI one. I have a template that I have saved out. I actually have the path to it because I lost it. Maybe I don't. Let me try to find it. There it is. So this is just a basic NDVI template. So I can do this as I can apply these templates as I publish my Mosaic data set. So it'll be published with these templates available with it. So let's get this kicking. Yeah. Don't have a certificate. I should have done this. There we go. So here it's running through this script. It's creating this service definition file like I showed you. It's staging it. It's publishing it. We're analyzing it. So here's the output from the analyzer. Just says the items have not been analyzed, which is fine. You don't have to analyze every item. Missing summary, missing tag. It doesn't really matter. So now it's publishing it. So now I have an image service. Let me remove the Mosaic dataset. I have an image service with NDVI applied of the same service. So these templates, let me show you where they live on the Mosaic, or this is the image service. So here is the list of templates. I only have one. I could set it to none and remove it. So you can see these things are pretty quick. They're pretty quick to apply, and that's because they're all done in memory. They're all done, we call it on the fly, so they're really fast. You don't have to like crunch this through a giant GP tool and wait however long for it to finish. It's all applied on the fly now, so it's pretty quick. And it renders pretty quickly. So let's, I'm going to show you a demo on live updating. This is actually pretty basic. I'm going to go get the Landsat imagery that was in one of those Mosaic data sets and add it to this as well. I just wanted to, this is more just to show you how it works. The code's not that interesting. I'm actually just adding rasters to a Mosaic data set. It's fairly basic. So let's get this kicking. So this image service is live. It's running right now. You can see it's like in ArcMap right now. So let's run this live update. Should only take a second. It's going to live update and actually apply. This template will be applied to the Landsat data too, because it's in the same Mosaic data set and I have the template applied. So it's done. It doesn't look like it's finished, but you need to refresh it in order for it to actually show up. So I can just zoom in, zoom out here. And now I have Landsat sitting on top of that. So without disrupting the image service at all, I can live update these things through Python. You can do this in a file geodatabase as well. You're just going to have to take down the service before you do it, which is not such a big deal if you could do it late at night. Maybe if you're doing it late at night, then when no one's using it, that's fine. But if you want to do this in the middle of the day when people are using it, you probably want to use an enterprise geodatabase. So let's get back to the presentation here. So the last thing I want to show, which kind of overlaps with the Python API as well, because we can do all this clipping and shipping and zipping with the Python API now, but you can also do this through REST. This is our original story. I don't know if over the years we'll probably deprecate. Probably not. We'll keep this around. This is probably going to stay around. I just don't know what our messaging is going to be, because this Python API is growing and growing, and they're trying to promote people to use it. But you can actually make REST requests through Python. So I'm going to show you a quick demo of like clip shipping and zipping through REST in Python. So in this REST API, you can do a bunch of stuff with imagery and Mosaic data sets. You can define geometry. So I can go in and define geometry around a particular image, something I want to download. You can define the Mosaic rule. I can go in and say, okay, I just want all the images from 1999 to sit on top and everything else to be underneath that. So I can define how my Mosaic gets rendered. It supports compression. So if I'm exporting these, we can compress them using whatever your favorite compression type. I can request different rendering rules. I can actually request to get a certain template. So say I have 20 processing templates in there. I can say, hey, I just want the NDVI template. I want my image service with NDVI applied, export the image, and I want to see what that looks like. And we can also change the export format. There's a bunch of stuff you can do in REST through Python. I'm not going to list them all, but you can actually, if you want to like take a screenshot of this, or I can give you this presentation after. You can go take a look at all the stuff available through REST. So here's the code I'm gonna run in the sec. So essentially, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create my REST request. I'm gonna get all the information that that I want to use. I want to use a certain lock raster. I want to use a certain Mosaic data set or Mosaic method, and I want to get a particular template. So I'm going to pass in the service URL. And then I'm gonna actually clip and zip, or not zip. I'm just going to clip and download this raster from the image service that I have published. So let me show you that real quick. I'll open my GP tool. So I have a GP tool wrapped around this code. I'm going to choose my image service that I want. I'm going to set an output folder. Let's do it here. Do it to output 4. I can define the cell size. I can define my clipping feature. So I'm going to do a quick clip here. The no data value is not important. The custom raster function, we'll just use the default raster function, which is NDVI. So let's run this real quick. Oops. I do wrong. Let's zoom in a little closer. Size, let's say 30. Well, that's not working. That's weird. It was working at the office. Okay, now it's working. No, it's not. Anyway, what this will do is output, I don't know if I have, yeah, so I have run this before. I ran this at the office. So I'll output clipped versions of this through REST. This is a different geometry than what I drew before with the NDVI applied to it. So I just want to mention a few things before the end of this. We do have, our products team is working on these things called Mosaic dataset configuration scripts, what they call them MDCS. They've built a bunch of these automated workflows for adding imagery to Mosaic datasets, creating Mosaic datasets, adding processing templates, pre-cooked. I don't know how many different raster types or raster products they have it built for, but they have, I'd say, a good 20 of them pre-cooked for like Landsat, for aerial imagery, for scan maps, for, it's kind of like a vertical thing. They're kind of building these for certain industries. And if you want to talk to the guy who manages it, Peter Becker and Cody should be roaming around here. They have a bunch of these all set up. So highly recommend you go looking at these because they've done a lot of work on this. Wrap them all in toolboxes, so they're pretty easy to use. You don't need to be a Python guy. They've wrapped them all in Python toolboxes like I showed you here. So go check this out. And yeah, that's it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
When you updated it with that live data, overwrite the data?
No, I just added, you can overwrite. If you can overwrite duplicates, if you have like,
Do you see the old data?
you'd have to set the Mosaic method. So at that point, I had the Mosaic method set to show the Landsat imagery. You can change it. You can say Mosaic method, and you can go to a field and say, okay, I only want to see the iconos or the GOI. You can do that, yeah. The end user can do it too. You can do it as a client on an image service too. You can go in. I'll show you real quick. But yeah, you can do it. You can do it as the editor too. Where is it? Right here. I can actually go in and set the Mosaic method, or I can actually do a definition query too. I can go, I only want to see sensor name equals GOI. Okay. I'm not sure where that went. There it is. Yeah, you can access all these Mosaic methods through all the web APIs and REST as well. An AGOL web map? I think they have it built into there as well. Yep, I think they do. Uh-huh. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.